My name is Dacia Clay. I'm the audio librarian here at Classical 91.7. While I'm a real librarian, I have a deep, dark secret. I know very little about classical music. I grew up listening to rock, and I know something about jazz. But when it comes to classical, but I really want to learn. So, every week on this show, a classical music expert will give me a piece of classical music they think I should know, and then we'll discuss it. Come learn with me in the classical classroom. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Classical Classroom. I'm Dacia Clay, and here with me today is Eric Skelly, who is the co-host of the Opera Cheat Sheet, another great podcast that provides a hilarious SparkNotes-esque overview of our weekly opera broadcast, and you can use it for just learning about opera in general. He is also our senior underwriting account executive here at Houston Public Media, and he is a member of both the Baring Memorial... I'm going to try that again because this is a mouthful.
Take a running start at that one. Yeah.
All right, here we go. Dun, 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 dun. He is a member of both the Baring Memorial United Methodist Church Choir and the Houston Symphony Chorus. He's also written for a long time for major arts publications, but more importantly, he's a major fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yes.
Eric,
it's
welcome
true.
to the show.
Thank you.
Any
Thank you
Buffy
for having
fan
me.
is welcome here.
Thank you. I feel like I'm cheating on St. John Flynn, though.
I know.
And I like it.
I won't. Beautiful. What are you going to be teaching me about today?
Well, when we first talked about this, you had wanted to do another classical classroom about opera, and opera is such a vast. People spend entire careers, looking in just tiny corners of opera. So I thought, what can we focus on that would be really useful to you, that could be useful in you going forward as you look at opera seasons and think about what you might like to try out.
Yeah.
And I thought, let's pick a particular composer, and who better than Giuseppe Verdi, because he is. Whenever you see classical music critics do their top 10 lists, he always makes the top 10.
And I know his name.
Well, there you go.
For opera, I mean, I know less about opera than I do about non-opera classical music. So that's, and that is saying something. So this is, we've only done 2 other shows about opera. One was near the very beginning of our doing this show.
I remember that one. It was you and Angela Schmidt talking about Bel Canto.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then we did another show on Nixon in China.
Oh, right.
It was actually a double episode with Michael Remsen.
Right.
Yeah.
I worked on the world premiere of that opera.
Did you really?
I really did. I was the assistant public relations director at Houston Grand Opera at the time, and we were, preparing to move into the Wortham Center, and we're publicizing the opening of the Wortham Center. We were publicizing the world premiere of Nixon in China. We had Verdi's Aida, starring Mirella Freni and Placido Domingo. It nearly killed us, but it was a great, great time, and I'm glad to have been a part of that.
That's right. I forgot it premiered in Houston. We talked about that a little bit.
It sure did.
Well, okay, let's get to the Verdi.
All right.
So, who was this guy? When did he live? Where did he live?
Well, he was a farmer.
A farmer?
He came from farming stock, and he loved nothing better than to go back to sort of reboot, to go back to his farm.
Yeah.
In I believe it was in the Po Valley in Italy. He was Italian, obviously. And he was just one of these guys that revolutionized opera in the 19th century, that is, mostly the mid to late 19th century.
Okay.
Now, while his contemporary Richard Wagner just completely turned everything on its ear and just said, all right, I'm throwing everything out and I'm going to reinvent the wheel completely. And he pretty much did. Verdi took the opposite tack. He worked from the inside out. And slowly changed it over the course of a very long, prolific career.
Okay. And you're going to show me what that means as we go through this?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But I thought we would start by just listening to some quick excerpts of some things that you would recognize instantly.
Okay.
Because his music I mean, Verdi was, forget Madonna, forget Lady Gaga and all these folks. Verdi was bigger than all of these folks. He was popular entertainment in Italy in his time and beyond Italy. Mm-hmm. And his music was and still is so popular that it bursts out of the confines of classical music and bleeds over into popular culture. Mm-hmm. So I thought we might listen to a few things, briefly, just to say, oh yeah, that's Verdi? Okay.
Yeah. Let's hear it for sure. Oh yeah. I know that one.
Yeah.
So what is this?
This is the aria La Donna e Mobile from Rigoletto.
Okay.
And this is a very famous tenor aria in which this completely reprehensible character, he really is, he's just irredeemable. He is... There's nothing good about this guy.
A winner, yeah.
He is not a winner. He basically is espousing his view of women, which is that women are fickle and they're, you've seen one, you've seen them all, and when you move on to the next one. That's, whatever.
Right? Nice guy.
Yeah, he really is not. But he gets some really memorable music to sing. So that's La Donna e Mobile from Rigoletto.
All right.
Ring a bell? Sort of?
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the Brindisi, which is a drinking song from La Traviata.
Okay.
And long before Hollywood invented the meet cute, this is sort of the meet cute. This is where the tenor and the soprano. It's not the first time they meet, but it's when they sort of fall in love.
Yeah.
And this is a drinking song that they drink, and he proposes a toast, and she's sort of still committed to this life of carefree frivolity, and she's kind of holding him a little bit at arm's length with this. But again, listen to this melody. How can you resist the melody?
Oh no, it's so catchy. And it sounds so Italian.
Yes.
There's something about both of the excerpts that you just played that is so, I don't know why that is. I couldn't pinpoint it, but there's something that just sounds like, you just want to burst into that's amore.
It's those syncopated rhythms that they sort of follow the Italian speech pattern so perfectly, and Verdi does that better than anybody.
Really?
Ever. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Wagner was a contemporary of his.
Yes.
And which is, having heard some Wagner opera, that is very hard to believe.
That there's anything in common. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who else was composing around this time? Classical music or opera or?
Well, this is the height of the Romantic period.
Okay.
So, in Russia, you've got Tchaikovsky and Mussorgsky. You've got Dvorak. these are all the big Romantic composers of the period. And they're all, they're not all exact contemporaries, but they're all, overlapping one another. And,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it gives me
But that's a really good point you make. That is, it just breathes Italian.
Yeah.
It just, it's quintessentially Italian to its core.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's hear another excerpt.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sound familiar at all?
Definitely.
That's the Grand March from Verdi's Aida.
Okay.
And, this is an opera that takes place in Egypt, and yet it still sounds quintessentially Italian
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, even though he puts a lot of, what would you say? A lot of Eastern color into the score. Something like this, it's just,
Yeah.
it's so Italian.
It's sort of like somebody with a strong Italian accent speaking, in another language. But you can still hear
Right.
that influence.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think we have one last little clip from. Well, I won't tell you.
Okay.
I'll just let it.
Okay.
You will know this one instantly.
Okay.
Guarantee it.
All right.
This is a recording of a live performance, and what a raggedy chorus. Bless their hearts.
This sounds like Looney Tunes music.
It's going to be in a second. Here it comes.
Oh, yeah.
It's the anvil chorus from Interrogatory.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're gypsies, and they're singing about the gypsy life, and they're swinging anvils and hammers, and life is good.
So basically, this
For
is
now.
romantic comedy / drinking music.
It's actually
Pretty
not
much
comedy
all.
at all. It's just that in when Looney Tunes or when popular culture co-opts this music, it usually puts it in some sort of funny context.
Yeah.
But the opera is anything but funny. It is so not funny.
Really?
Yeah.
The story in
Yeah.
itself?
Oh, it's just awful. It's just terribly tragic from beginning to end. Yeah.
Well, there's something that's very it's like a caricature. Like everything about this music is so big. It's like things are exaggerated.
Yeah,
and,
that's because pop culture has taken it and exaggerated it for effect.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
and for instance, you may have heard it in the Marx Brothers: A Night at the Opera.
Probably,
That's the opera that they completely sabotage at the end of the opera, and there are all sorts of excerpts, including this one.
Yeah.
And and it's all the more funny because it's not a funny opera. It's not funny.
That's great. And we are none the wiser.
Yeah.
Well, so talk to me about he's clearly just somebody who is iconic and is just everywhere, and who probably anybody who has a TV or a radio has heard at some point.
Yeah.
So tell me about his creative life. Why does he stand out? How did he move opera forward?
Well, let's dive in, why don't we? Because basically, Verdi's works, and he wrote a lot of opera. There are a lot of operas from his early period that we don't hear very often, because he was so prolific in his early years, and he called them his galley years, and he was just churning them out one after another.
Yeah.
And some of them, they're not masterpieces, but it's still Verdi. Even Verdi at less than his best is always worth listening to. When I talk about his early period, you have the numbers, you have the arias and the duets and the ensembles and the choruses. And then you have the musical connecting material that they call recitative. Do you recall that?
Yes.
Yeah. And the recitative is where all the action happens.
Okay.
His early period operas still have the recitative, and then the arias, and there's usually a slow aria, the cavatina, and then it's followed by a fast aria to show how agile and flexible the voice can be.
Yeah.
And that's basically what he's doing in his early period, and he's moving though toward a middle period, and when we get there, we'll see what he does to just kind of blow things open.
Okay.
For opera. But let's listen to an aria from Macbeth.
Okay.
Because Verdi was all about Shakespeare. Verdi revered Shakespeare. And he did 3 Shakespearean works. There's Macbeth, Othello, and Falstaff was his last opera. And we'll be hearing some of that in a little bit. This is our introduction to Lady Macbeth.
All right.
She's just read the letter from Macbeth telling her that he's been named Thane of Cawdor, and she's starting to think big and dangerously. Mm-hmm. And she's starting to dream about what could be in store for them, what they could grasp if they were to reach out and grasp the future and, quote, screw their courage to the sticking place and do some rather nasty things to get there.
So something, I know that in opera you've got people who write the actual music. You've got the composers, and then you've got librettists.
Yes.
Now, did Verdi do both? How did that work?
He did not, but he was very particular about his librettists, and he worked very closely with them.
Okay.
And was very demanding of them in creating his operas. When we get to the end of his career, he meets another composer named Arrigo Boito, who also composed or wrote librettos, and the two of them become one of the all-time great composer-librettist teams.
And a librettist only writes the words.
Correct.
Okay. No music.
No.
No musical composition.
No. Although Boito actually did write some of his own operas as well.
But typically no.
Yeah.
Okay.
But one of the things you notice, you may have noticed in this Macbeth excerpt, is the size of this singer's voice.
Yes.
It's not small.
My eyes kind of really big.
Hello.
Yeah.
Verdi's orchestras are getting bigger. And consequently, the size of the voice required of singers got bigger because of Verdi and Wagner and folks that followed them.
Right.
This particular role can be done by both sopranos and mezzo-sopranos because it tends to sit low in the soprano voice, and you need to really kind of have a big middle voice plus top notes all the way up to a high D above the staff, a D above high C. And
a mezzo-soprano can sort of do that whole range.
Sometimes it's a little easier for a mezzo to do that, to live in that area, and if she's got the D the D above high C, then she's golden. That was Fiorenza Cosotto there. Well, from there we go to Verdi's middle period.
All right.
Okay, that begins with Rigoletto, and it includes just one masterpiece after another. Rigoletto, Traviata, Trovatore, Don Carlo, Aida, The Force of Destiny. It's Simon Boccanegra. Mm-hmm. And what he does, when he's starting with Rigoletto, what he does here is he'll have, for instance, a duet, let's say. And the melody will not be in the voices. The melody will be in the orchestra behind the voices, allowing the voices to have a dialogue, to have a very natural sounding dialogue between them, and thereby allowing him to further plot in a musical number.
And this is very different from what had come before. This seems like an innovation.
Yeah, this is very much an innovation.
Yeah.
Very much an innovation. So I wanted to demonstrate that. I went for a duet from Don Carlo.
Okay.
Don Carlo is an amazing piece. It's loosely based on history. Philip II of Spain, the King of Spain from the 16th century, he is a major character in this opera. And he has a son, Carlo, of the title, with whom he is not well pleased. And he is a king who has a reputation for ruthlessness. And he shows that here. But he also has this other side to him where he just can't quite figure out why nobody loves him. Seriously. And it's very poignant. It sounds funny when I say it that way, but it's very poignant. And he has this whole aria that opens this act where he laments the fact that his wife never loved him. Well, you know, he was supposed to marry your son, and you sort of pulled a bait and switch on her and married her yourself. So, you know.
First mistake.
Yeah.
That's...
So what's going to happen here is this scene is I think I'm not overstating it. I don't think this is hyperbole to say it's one of the greatest scenes in all of opera.
All right.
This is Philip II, and he has asked for an audience with the Grand Inquisitor of Spain.
Okay. What does that mean? I love
the
that
Inquisition.
title, but...
The Inquisition was a way in which the church at that time was able to exert power over everyone, including the monarchy.
And the Grand Inquisitor was the person who was sort of heading this up in any place? Okay.
Absolutely. And the way that they wielded power was through torture and, burnings, and they were not nice guys.
So compassion and love.
Yeah. They were really deeply, deeply twisted, scary people.
Wow.
Deeply, deeply, deeply. This guy, this Grand Inquisitor, they don't actually name him. I think the historical Grand Inquisitor was Torquemada, if I'm not mistaken. This guy is very, very old. He's completely blind. He has to be helped into the room by two attendants. Mm-hmm. And yet, you can hear in the music that accompanies him in the low bassoons that this guy is supremely dangerous.
All right.
He's announced. Does that not make your spine crawl?
Yeah, that's pretty creepy. That's pretty creepy.
Yeah. He's just walking into the room at this point. That's him. He's asking if he's in the presence of the king because he's blind. He doesn't know. That's Philip II. Philip is telling him that his son is causing him great anguish and pain. He's going to ask him in a second, if I have him killed, will you pardon me?
Holy moly.
Yeah. But the interesting thing here is if you're listening to this, the melody is all in the orchestra behind them. They're interjecting. They're having a conversation over the melody.
Yeah, I hear that.
Yeah. And there are things actually, the plot is being furthered here.
Right.
Because the king, the Grand Inquisitor is going to tell him, yeah.
You betcha.
You betcha.
But the music isn't losing any momentum while they're having this conversation because it keeps going.
But notice though, that the tessitura, how high their vocal line is, keeps going up. It keeps up and up and up. And the more cruel and ruthless and heartless the things they're saying, the more cruel the vocal line becomes. Until they're up at the very tops of their range. These are two basses.
Wow. Wow. They
really are. Philip asks him, if I strike down my own son, will you absolve me? And the Inquisitor says, well, yeah. And Philip says, as a Christian, can I do that? And the Inquisitor's response is, well, Christ, God sacrificed his only son. Can you do any less?
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Because you are so much like God.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, twisted.
Dang.
Twisted.
Yikes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
these are two great basses, by the way. This is Nikolai Giaurov as Philip II and the great Finnish bass Matti Talvela as the Grand Inquisitor. I mean, this is just, when you get two great basses in these roles, it's just like watching, Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal play a tennis match.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, so this is from Verdi's sort of middle period.
Yes.
Where he's basically experiencing the level of fame and adoration that like mid-90s Madonna experienced.
And he's breaking open the mold. He's breaking out of the strictures that he's been operating under, that Bel Canto left him. He basically took the reins from Donizetti. And through his early period, he kept to that, all the while finding his own voice as a composer. Now, he's breaking out of that.
Right.
And he's creating works that are far more dramatically riveting than almost anything that's gone before.
Yeah.
And when we get to his late period, which is really just two operas, Otello and Falstaff, blows the whole thing wide open.
Oh.
It's difficult even to pull a number out of there. You can do it, but it's almost like it's just one big through composed entity from beginning to end of each act. And it just goes on. And there's melody, but it's constantly changing and it's evolving, and it's not here. Even in Don Carlo, when you have arias, oftentimes they have structure to them, and it's not that the late period stuff doesn't have structure. It's just much more free form.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay,
this sounds fantastic.
Let's go to Falstaff.
All right.
Okay, this is Verdi going back to Shakespeare, because his last two operas are Otello and Falstaff.
Yeah.
And first of all, let me just point out that when we listen to Falstaff, it still is amazing to me that we're listening to a work that premiered when Verdi was 82 years old.
Whoa.
And that's 82 in the context of the 19th century.
Wow.
That's not 82 now. Now, everything's shifting.
Right. Now 82-year-olds run marathons.
Exactly. This is in the 19th century. And it's astounding. I mean, and that he was able to create this. And this is an unabashed golden masterpiece. This is absolute a brilliant piece of work. It's one of only two comedies he ever wrote. One he wrote way early. I think it was like his second opera ever. And then there's this one. And it's based upon Shakespeare's Merry Wives of Windsor, with a few excerpts pulled from Henry IV, Part 4, which is where we first meet the character of Falstaff.
Okay.
And it's just one of those works that makes you feel, all is right with the world, and you just walk out of the theater, a couple inches off the ground.
Right.
It just makes you happy. It's so wonderful.
Okay, let's hear it.
Now check this out.
What is going on?
You've got two groups of characters. These are all principal characters, okay? And they're on two different sides of the stage, and they're each conversing in their own little groups. They've got the men over here and the women over here. And they're all plotting. They're all plotting to get Falstaff his comeuppance.
Yeah.
But they're doing so in two different meters. And it shouldn't work. It should go completely off the rails, and yet it doesn't.
Yeah.
It all fits.
Yeah. It's very playful, too.
It's completely playful from
Yeah.
beginning to end. And you can hear how, here now you can hear the voices and they're singing. They've got the melody, but then they'll go out of it. Then they'll be conversing, and the melody's back in the orchestra, and it just kind of trades off and on, and it just all works. It's just all so masterfully composed.
And it's like this for the duration of the opera, where it's just sort of, you move sort of fluidly from one thing to the other. Mm-hmm. And it's a little more true to life, in that's how people converse.
Yes, exactly.
In groups
it follows
and
their
at
speech
the same
patterns.
time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. So let's go to another scene.
Okay.
This is where they're setting Falstaff up for his comeuppance. Falstaff is, oh my gosh, Falstaff is a legend in his own mind. He is a very old man, and he's a very, 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 very fat man. If he ever had a sell-by date, he is long past it, but he doesn't know that.
Yeah.
He's virtually penniless. He's living hand to mouth, but he is a knight, and he just thinks that he is, the bee's knees.
Yeah.
He's just, and he thinks of himself as a great seducer. So what he's done is he set his sights on these two married women, Alice and Meg.
Yeah.
And he sends them 2 letters, trying to set up an assignation. And he sends them the exact same letters and just changes their names.
Oh, classic.
And of course, they're friends. And so Meg comes in with this letter, and Alice goes, "I've got one too." And they read them to each other, and they go, "Oh, he's toast."
Wow.
So they send their friend Dame Quickly. She's the sort of the matronly one of the group. And she's going to go to Falstaff, and she's going to make the assignation for Alice to set up Falstaff for his comeuppance.
Yeah.
And this is that scene. And she comes in. This is sung by a dramatic mezzo-soprano or contralto.
Yeah.
Who has big, plummy chest voice and can really play this up. And she comes in, and the first thing she sings is Reverenza, your reverence, your honor. And she just lays it on so thick.
Yeah.
And if you can get a mezzo who is a great comedic actress, this one is the great Fedora Barbieri with one of the all-time great Falstaffs, the Italian baritone Tito Gobi.
I can hear that.
Yeah.
She's really like, your reverence.
Yes. Oh, with a big exaggerated curtsy all the way down to the ground. In a minute, she's going to say, "Tu sei un gran seduttore." You're a great seducer. And he'll say, "I know."
That's great.
My Lady Alice Ford. Well, oh, poor woman. She pines with love for you. There it is. I know.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is great.
It is. It's just wonderful. And then, in the next scene, they have the whole situation where he comes in and he's supposed to meet Alice, and they've set it up so that Meg is supposed to run in and say, "Oh, your husband is coming," and they're gonna throw him into a laundry basket and throw him out the window. Well, what happens is her husband actually catches wind of this, and he does show up with a whole retinue of guys with, pitchforks, and it's just this whole chaotic comedic scene, and it's so masterfully masterminded by Verdi. every step of the way.
Yeah.
And it ends with them actually dumping Falstaff in a laundry basket out the window into the Thames.
This is fabulous.
It is fabulous. And it goes, and then there's a whole nother, plot that happens in the next couple of acts. And then the entire opera ends with a fugue. Well, let's play it. It's called Tutto nel mondo è burla. All in the world is a joke.
Okay.
And everybody's born a jokester. Everybody's trading off the line, the main melody line, and it's over and over and over again. Different sections is coming out from everywhere.
Is this overwhelming for an audience to experience? I mean, all of these big voices going at once.
Yes and no. It's overwhelming in that it just suffuses you with such joy you just bounce out of the theater. But the beauty of opera is that in ensembles, because every voice has a different line, you can follow them all.
Okay.
If you tried that in just a straight theatrical piece that's not musical, it would be chaotic because you couldn't follow any of them. But because the music allows you to distinguish each voice, it's not chaotic. It's actually quite brilliant.
It works.
It works.
Is this where he's getting dumped into this?
No. Everybody's forgiven everyone.
Oh, okay.
Everybody's forgiven everyone.
It is.
They're all
good.
friends again.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Before we wrap up, why do you think that Verdi is still studied today? Why are his operas still performed today? What is it that made him last this long and still remain so very important and iconic?
His supreme genius for wedding brilliant melody that appeals to everyone. It's universally appealing to dramatic structures that remain relevant.
Yeah.
I just saw a Rigoletto that was set in 1960s Las Vegas.
What?
And it worked. It worked.
That's crazy.
Sometimes they try that stuff and it's just, you've got to be kidding.
Right.
This worked. Because it still remains so relevant, and it can be lifted from time period to time period and still be made to work because it's all about the music.
It seems like the thing that sort of ties people who last for centuries and centuries, whose names remain in the textbooks and people keep studying them and are the people who have their eye set on something that is bigger, that is universal, that's not about necessarily themselves or expressing themselves, but they create in order to connect with something.
Yeah, and
greater.
With Verdi, it's about the human condition. It's about people. It's about fathers and daughters and fathers and sons and the complexities of those relationships.
Yeah, and those never, the importance of that and the relevance of that never goes away.
Never becomes irrelevant.
Eric, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been really fun.
For me too.
And I will have you back again when we need another dose of opera for sure.
I'm ready whenever you are.
Well, everybody, that about does it for this episode of Classical Classroom. For more Classroom, go to houstonpublicmedia.org/classroom. Subscribe to us on iTunes, or you can go to soundcloud.com/classical classroom to see and hear everything we've ever recorded. Listen to us on Stitcher Radio, and always remember to rate and review us. We promise it will make you feel warm and fuzzy. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, email me at dclay@houstonpublicmedia.org. Thanks today to audio engineer Todd with a T, Hulslander, for making us sound fit for public consumption, to program director St. John Flynn for lending Eric to us, to Eric Skelly for taking time out of his busy day to be with us, to me for saying words, and to you for listening. We'll catch you next time.